Okay, here we go. My name is Sadie Hartman, Mother Horror. I am the co-owner of the Nightworm subscription company that specializes in horror books delivered to your door every month. With me today is author and store owner Del Howison. Hello,
How are
Del.
you? Great to be here. Thanks. I've got the black background just for your horror angle.
Yeah, we like it dark. Del, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, I'm really interested first to hear about Dark Delicacies and when you opened that and why you opened that. Where is it?
Sure. Yeah, we opened in 1994.
Oh,
I
wow.
was 6 years old, so otherwise I'd be really old now. Um, we've been in four different spots,
Okay.
as the rents went up or whatever, but it's all been within a half a mile area. So
Oh, that's lucky.
yeah, it kind of worked out okay. So
Yeah.
this is year 28, just getting ready to go into year 29.
Wow.
Or no, let's see what this would be year 29, getting ready to go into year 30, right? 94, we're in 23, something like that.
Yeah,
Whatever.
because I graduated from high school in 94. So that means that I've not been a high school student for 30 years.
As of this year, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been great. We've had tons of we do signings all the time, which I really like. My wife is trying to which we should have done from the beginning, and we're just brain dead. We would trying to put a list together of all the signings we've had, the people who have signed, and right now her list is single spaced, 90 pages long.
90? I thought you were going to say like 9, but 90? Oh,
90 pages long, yeah. So
that's a lot of people.
because we do something almost every single weekend. Some weekends we do Saturday and Sunday both. We've got one coming up, as a matter of fact. I have a signing coming up at the Cowboy Festival in the morning. At 3 in the afternoon, there's a store signing for Sorority Babes from the Slimeball-O-Rama 2.
Oh my God.
And at 6 o'clock that same day, we have a signing for Joe R. Lansdale for his new book, The Donut Legion. So that's a busy day, and we have had many of those in our history.
Yeah, wow. That is so fun. So you've literally met so many people from the horror industry throughout these 30 years.
We are enablers.
Yeah. I'm a fellow enabler.
There you go.
Yeah, that's cool. So is it your store is all just strictly horror, or do you go into like horror adjacent titles too, like Joe's book?
Well, we carry Joe because Joe has written a lot of horror
Yeah.
along with the other stuff. So horror fans don't just read horror, or they don't just watch horror movies. So if they latch on to somebody they really like, such as Joe, they want to get the other books also. Plus, when we do a signing, we tried bringing the backlist, so they have that to choose from and get signed also. So that works out.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, we've sent out like S.A. Cosby's Razorblade Tears in our Nightworms package, which is like generally horror. But I feel like there's a lot of like thriller and adventure kind of crossover there with some authors. Like if it's dark in some ways or bleak
Right.
or whatever, horror fans are going to gravitate towards that.
Exactly. And we don't stock a lot of other stuff unless it really is someone known as a horror author, and then they've written other stuff.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us to the New Western.
I know, right?
What a great segue.
So this book is The Survival of Margaret Thomas. This is written by Del, and it comes out tomorrow. And just get a look at this gorgeous cover. Like,
I'm in love with that cover. I think it's beautiful.
I think so too. I think it's really it has a lot of movement to it, and it captures the pace and the adventure of this story, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the journey of this book. I know you just recently wrote an article for Horror DNA that
Right.
talks about the origin story of this book, but tell us about like its first printing and now here it is with Pandy Press.
Pandy Press is an interesting, basically experiment, because the Gale 5-Star, which was the publisher of the hardback that came out first, they don't do trade paperbacks, and they don't sell to bookstores. They sell mainly to libraries, and then it is available on Amazon, but that's it. And, you know, if you don't know what you're looking for on Amazon, it's not like browsing in a bookstore. You don't just accidentally come across titles because you're going right to what you're looking for. So Pandy said, we'll do it as a trade paperback and get it out to bookstores. And quite frankly, that was like an opening I didn't have before. And it was a new thing for them because they had been kind of limited and a new company. And so it was a step out for them and a step out for me. And so far, it's been mutually fun.
That's cool. You have a history with the Lansdales. You like...
We don't like to talk about that stuff. Oh, yeah.
Well, you're in LA with
right.
Dark Delicacies and Casey, you know, has told me about being in Burbank and all of that. So, I mean, that's really cool that there's this, you know, connection there between the two of you, and then just went and launched into this like trade paperback for this book.
Right, and the book, the publisher is Casey Lansdale, Joe's daughter,
right.
And Jonathan Levitt, who actually did the setup of the book, and the way the book looks is totally Jonathan's banana.
Yeah, I think it's so gorgeous. I was really impressed with like the cover, the spine work, and just the formatting and the layout. And also I got to read it and I loved it. I thought this is really a good time for Westerns. As I read Joe Lansdale's The Thicket,
which is being made into a movie right now.
Yeah, right? And then there's there's like 4 or 5 adventure Western horror books coming out this particular month. I know that Haley Piper has one with Dead Sky. I know that Lone Women by Victor LaValle just came out.
Yeah, last week, I believe.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird Western frontier type of story. And then C.S. Humble, which I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but he wrote The Massacre of Yellow Hill, which is coming out at the end of this month. So,
and this truly is a Western, but I would really call it horror adjacent.
I would too.
It's pretty dark, but the book came about because, you know, that saying, if you don't see it, then you have to create it.
Yeah.
You know, I had seen very little or none of Westerns from the woman's point of view. And I wanted to write about a very empowered woman. And she doesn't necessarily start out that way, but her journey takes her there, you know. And she picks up other friends and others along the way. And I had never seen a Western written in first person from the woman's point of view. The closest thing I can put this to is True Grit, which was, you know, Maddie's story. But Maddie was a teenage girl, and this is about a grown woman who is kind of just left stranded after the death of her husband, and filled with guilt on top of that she's having to deal with. Right.
I really thought that there was a few movies that I had seen that gave me a similar vibe that I really enjoyed with the woman's perspective. I can't remember the title. I think it was like Lawless or something, maybe.
The Town of Women.
Yeah, that was so good.
It was great.
I love that. I think that
all of their husbands had gone off to war or whatever, and they were left. It was the whole town full of women running everything. Yeah, and it was wonderful. So yeah.
And your book reminded me a lot of that kind of vibe. I have to ask you too, is Margaret Thomas based on somebody you know? Because I felt like she had such a specific personality.
She's kind of a composite of people I did know.
Yeah.
My aunt, who basically raised me, was a very strong woman. She lived in our house with my parents and everything. She was my mom's sister, but
Oh,
she had dealt with polio. But at the same time, she had worked herself up to be the executive of a business. I
wow.
mean, she was a great role model for me to do a lot of this from.
Yeah, just that whole like survival ethic where,
Yeah.
not a whole lot of time like feeling sorry for yourself, and then just kind of like this proactive desire to get out there and, well, I don't want to spoil the story, but just get out there and see what you're what's what. I was just gonna start like talking about the plot details, but it's
But it's true, and I tried to keep her as human as my aunt was. She makes mistakes. Margaret Thomas makes mistakes,
yeah, she's
makes
calm.
bad decisions or whatever. But at the same time, you're absolutely right. She's very resourceful. If the
Yeah.
if the front door doesn't work, try the back door.
Yeah, I think fans of Joe Lansdale also will really appreciate the fact that you bring in a lot of like side characters that are very colorful and fun for the reader to get to know as she goes along her journey.
Right.
Um, so Joe Lansdale fans, and also I think readers who have enjoyed Alma Katsu's The Hunger will
Hmm.
also appreciate this book. I mean, that was more historical fiction, but also some very strong like female protagonists.
And very horror adjacent, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not like a horror western necessarily in the same sense that people, over the last few years have gotten those splatter westerns from
Right.
Death's Head Press. Those lean really heavy into like the gore and the blood and the, violence. And your book does have its share.
I was going to say there's no shortage of that.
I don't want to sugarcoat it. But I do think that it's very character driven. I think that,
Yes.
You've spent a lot of time with the dialogue, you've spent a lot of time developing the characters.
My feeling is that the bigger the canvas, the more you have to concentrate on the individual people in the story. And there's no bigger Kansas than the Old West. And she certainly, the center of this book is the train trip across the Old West. And then you have another horseback trip across the Old West. So that the West itself, the country, becomes a character. But in doing that, I had to work really hard. It's like War and Peace. You have to concentrate on the characters, not on the fact that you're in the middle of a war going on.
Yeah, because you could get really sidetracked into those details.
Right.
Yeah. Did you watch like a lot of westerns when you were younger, or are you inspired by that?
My dad was a big Western fan, and this was pre-Star Wars. Okay, so this is way back. But so I sat with my dad and watched Westerns all the time. It was like my Star Wars. It was an alternate universe to me because I was growing up in Detroit. Totally different. So yeah, I was based on that. He gave me my love of Westerns, and then my mom gave me the love of individual characters and taking the time to find out who somebody really is. And I think the best review I had was somebody came into the store and they had just read the book. And they said, this book kind of starts off like Steinbeck. It's kind of characters and slow, and it kind of has that, of the country kind of stuff. And then suddenly it's like this locomotive takes off and it just runs for the rest of the time that you're doing it.
That's a really good comparison, a really good comp. Like, I love Steinbeck, mostly because I grew up in California, and he's a California writer, and so
right.
A lot of his landscapes are very familiar to me. But I like
his characters are so unique.
Yes, like East of Eden. I mean, that's just a trio of characters. There's really nobody else in the story. So, and then since you own a horror store, what do you think are your biggest influences on your writing?
Oh, well, that's a whole different thing, isn't it? I think Peter Straub's Ghost Story is one of my very biggest influences.
I love that book.
And talk about an array of characters. It's like you start out here in the middle of what seems to be a kidnapping, and then you go into this small town and you've got the country people. At the same time, you've got these three scholars who meet once a month or something and tell each other ghost stories,
right?
Except the ghost stories are true. And it just gets crazy. The canvas is so huge, and yet he keeps it all together.
Yeah.
I like books that are coming of age books, like Boy's Life by Robert McCammon and Dan Simmons. The Summer of Night. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And then, of course, we've already spoken about Joe Lansdale. So you can't get, very many teachers better than that, just reading their stuff.
Yeah, I saw you got a Clive Barker blurb for this book.
I did. Somebody said, oh, it was Casey Lansdale. I showed it to her. She goes, that's not a blurb. That's a love letter.
It was. Well, I was like, holy crap. Like, this is such an amazing testament to your work. I mean, I would treasure that forever. Like, that was just...
I'm keeping it.
Do you know him? Do you know him?
I do know him, but, through the store, I know hundreds of people in horror. Yeah. So that was... I wasn't expecting that. I didn't even know he had read it, so...
Yeah, was he in the store?
No, he sent it from his house. Yeah.
Yeah, but has he done like a signing?
He's done signings at the store. Yeah, he used to be. He's getting a little older now, and it's a little hard to get around. But he's starting to come back out of that and get out there a little bit. But in the old days, he used to sign every time he did a new book. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's really cool.
Because he lives like in Beverly Hills, so it's not that far away from Burbank. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting just having, started really being a part of the horror industry and the book industry itself. I've noticed that not as many things happen on the West Coast as the East Coast. So it's really all the cons, and it seems like a lot of the bookish festivals centered on horror are always in the East Coast. But what in the West Coast could you recommend to readers who love horror as destination stops, besides obviously Dark Delicacies? But where have you found?
I think you're right, because the conventions out here are usually centered around the entertainment business. Mm-hmm, so it's horror conventions about movies, and you've got actors there, and you've got composers and directors, maybe screenwriters, but not the book people. Nothing wrong with those, but I like some literary conventions too. Well, don't we have the LA Festival of Books coming up?
And yeah, I think that's at the end of this month, correct?
Right, and that's every year, and that's huge, and you get to spend the day outside walking around the campus in California, so that's worth doing it.
That's worth doing. I didn't sign up for it this year, but I have a book coming out in August, which I plan on coming by your store, which would be fun.
I hope so. Yeah. Is it horror?
It's 101 horror books to read before you're murdered.
Oh, that's great. Do I have to read fast? I don't.
Yes.
We'll have to have you come down and do a signing.
Yeah, I would love to. That would be so fun.
And then I just did. I'm a writer, I attended the 45th or 43rd Vintage Paperback show, which happens every year in Glendale, California. And that was fun. I hadn't been there in years because it used to be in a different location, and COVID hit and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So we kind of did a sneak preview of the survival of Margaret Thomas there. And then, like the Cowboy Fest that I'm doing is music, art, literature, everything. Panels, all of that, but it's very genre specific. And I would like to see, like the LA Festival of Books, more general literature, meet the authors, those kind of festivals here on the West Coast.
I would like that too. I mean, I'm sure they're like really complicated to put together and just, you know, seems kind of overwhelming, but I definitely think there's a need for it here on the West Coast.
And part of that is the publishers, because I used to go to the book show at the Javits Center once a year, where you would go and publishers would be introducing their new books and all of that. And it used to be in a different city every year, used to travel. Then the publishers realized, well, if we just stay in New York, all our staff is here and the Javits Center is here. Everyone will travel to New York. We don't need to take it to the people. So that really became an East Coast thing. And I think the film people are kind of feel the same way. Look, all of the actors are here and the movies are made here. So it's a geographical thing that I think we should work really hard on overcoming.
I think so too. I mean, there's beautiful convention centers all over the place. Like my city has a beautiful convention center. I mean, it would be easy to do something here in Washington. Seattle has great convention centers.
Oregon, you know, Denver still is considered this side, you know, Denver, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas. Come on, we do have places you can do this at.
Yeah, let's do this. I'm down for it too.
Yeah.
Are you doing any more signings? Like, are you traveling around at all, or?
I have a signing at this weird place called Dark Delicacies coming up, which is the end of April. I'm actually signing with Glenn Hirschberg, who is a great writer. If you ever get a chance to read his book, The Two Sams, it's like 4 stories or whatever, novella type things.
Yeah.
And it is great. And we're also at that time signing the book. What is my new book that just came out? It's not my book. I'm a short story in the whole book, but we're signing. Huh?
The anthology.
The anthology. It's an anthology, and it's all Western stories except for like mine is Western, but it's kind of supernatural, you know.
Oh, that sounds like a great combination.
Yeah, so we're signing that at the same time. If you go on the Dark Delicacies website, darkdel.com, there we got our plug-in. You will see it in the signings and events page. You can look all that stuff up.
Okay, well, actually, I'm going to take all of the links for all of your events, the Dark Delicacies one, the Cowboy one, LA Book Festival. I know you're not going to be there, but I mean, we mentioned. And
I personally have a Facebook page that people can reach me at if they want to.
Okay, I'll put all of those links in the show notes for everybody. So check those out. Those will be down here, you guys. And also just another quick view of that beautiful cover, The Survival of Margaret Thomas, which comes out tomorrow. You can order this directly from Pandy Press. If you go there, they have 3 buttons there for you. You can U.S., international, ebook. You can find this wherever books are sold. It's on Barnes & Noble.
Order it from any of those. Or if you want a signed copy, you can order it from me on the Dark Delicacy site.
Perfect.
So,
copies are great. And
in fact, I can get signed copies to Pandy. If you want a signed copy and you're ordering from Pandy, just tell them you want a signed copy and we'll work it out.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Well, it was a pleasure sitting down with you this afternoon and getting to talk to you, getting to see you face to face. We email all the time.
And this was nice because we were trying to work this out to have this conversation, and we kept, well, wait, I got a doctor's appointment. Well, wait, I have to take my dog. We couldn't do it. And then we finally did, and I'm really excited. So
yeah, 2 busy people finally came together and had this interview.
And let them know your website, your Mother Horror.
I will.
Give them the address.
I'll put all the links in the show notes for everybody. So
there you go.
All right. Thanks again, Del.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.